Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. This idea was floated recently. Trump did, in an interview, this issue came up, the idea of creating a compensation fund for victims of illegal immigrant criminals under a Trump administration. And yesterday, after, kicking it around for a few days, he made this announcement.
I'm announcing that for the first time under my administration, we will be seizing the assets of the criminal gangs and drug cartels. And we will use those assets to create a compensation fund to provide restitution for the victims of migrant crime, and the government will help in the restoration. The government will help in the restitution, but something has to be done, and we're gonna get it done.
That's something, yeah. I mean, that's appropriate.
Make them pay.
Well, I mean, it's yes. I mean, seizing assets and the government compensating the victims of their policies, of its policies. This administration in particular, obviously. I like the idea. And I also like this idea that we didn't really talk about very much, but back on Friday when the Joe Rogan interview of Trump dropped, they talked a little bit of economics, and Trump had previously indicated that he doesn't think the federal income tax is a particularly good idea. He's right about that. So this was an interesting exchange.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure. But why not? Because our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families unless they pay a big price. And the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. Believe me, they control our politicians.
I mean, I don't want to get too deep into the history of tariffs, but I would encourage people to read that Phil Graham and Don Boudreaux piece in the Wall Street Journal from the other week on the topic, where actually, yes, rates were high in the 19th century, but actually the economy boomed the most when rates were at their lowest, when we were industrializing as a country. But just setting that aside, the idea that you have a president of the United States who understands that a tax on work, which means you get less of it, makes no sense. That's kind of fun. It makes some of his protectionism a little easier to swallow, at least for me. We'll see what Steve Moore thinks about that. Steve Moore joins us now. He is an economist. He is also the author of what's the Trump-inspired title of your book again?
How could you forget? It's the Trump economic miracle. And by the way, guys, I'm getting very nervous, Amy, about Saturday. You guys are going to put me right on the grill.
This is a warm-up. Yeah.
So I'm prepared for you guys. I know the tough questions you're going to ask me, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll be what time are we on the stage? By the way, what time are we doing that on Saturday?
I think it begins at 9 a.m.
Okay.
But we'll make sure that we let you know.
Make sure you're on time.
Yes, be on time. And what are we wearing, guys? Let's have girl talk. Are we wearing suits, or are you going to wear a golf outfit, Dan?
All I know is I'm wearing a MAGA hat.
Okay.
There you go.
The new black one, the cool one?
Dark
MAGA. That's hot. We should sell those at events.
But I have to tell you guys, I was in Madison Square Garden on Saturday, and what was really cool about it, I got it just because it wasn't really what happened in the garden. It was the motorcade that was from Trump Tower, which is about a mile down Fifth Avenue from the Madison Square Garden. And you would have thought America had won World War II. I mean, there were 50,000 people out there, 10 deep, along the roads, just watching the Trump motorcade go by. I mean, there's something going on here. It was really amazing, a lot of fun, and people are pumped up. And, yeah, I know what you're going to say, Dan. You're going to say we're a bunch of Nazis and fascists.
Yes, right, exactly. Garbage. Yes, exactly.
No, we're garbage. We're basura.
All right, stop dodging. I'm glad you had fun with your Nazi friends in New York. Stop dodging the question though. What Trump said about are you and Laffer discussing with Trump, figuring out a way to eliminate the federal income tax? Boy, that'd be fun.
So it would be. I mean, here a little quick. And by the way, I don't know a lot about William McKinley. Let me confess to that. He was a little before my time, but I do know this: that Trump is right. That for the first 125 years of our country, and by the way, folks, there will be an exam at the end of this. For the first 125 years of our country, there was no income tax, and that is one of the reasons we boomed and became the economic leader of the world, and became such a prosperous country. And then we made one of the greatest mistakes in American history, which you just were referring to, Dan, which was the passage. I think it was the 16th Amendment, but you don't quote me on that. I think it was the 16th Amendment that created the income tax. And an amazing story about that, by the way, is that when they were debating the income tax, there was a amendment on the Senate saying we should have a provision that the income tax may never go over 10%. Because the original income tax, do you know what the original rate was on the income tax? 7%. 7%. And so the senator said, let's have an amendment that says that we can never have an income tax over 10%. And all the advocates of the income tax said, no, we don't need that because nobody would ever consider an income tax over 10%. Well, 5 years after we enacted the income tax, you know what the highest rate was? 70%. So, once they get accustomed to taking our money, they take more and more of it. So this is a long-winded answer to say, yes, I like this. I don't know if it could be done, but yes, getting rid of the income tax and taxing consumption, like a national retail sales tax, where you would tax goods when you purchase them, and one way you do that is by having a tariff. Yeah, and I'm good friends with Phil Graham. I know Don Bedreau. I understand their argument, and I'm a free trade guy. But I do think that taxing what people consume and taxing what comes in is not produced here. I think in exchange for eliminating the income tax, and getting rid of the IRS, I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too, actually. Something on the spend side of note.
Wait a minute, Amy, did you hear that? Dan actually was reading this with me on something.
Yeah. Well,
I wrote it down. I time-stamped it. I got it.
I agree with you on most things, of course, but, I have to hold your feet to the fire sometimes.
Yeah, I know you do.
So billionaire investor dude John Paulson, who's a possible Treasury Secretary in the Trump administration, he said he's going to work with Musk on that government efficiency, reduce the size of the federal budget by $2 trillion.
Yeah, I love that. And, it's funny because somebody was asking me the other day, what if Trump wins, what job would you want? And truly, I don't actually like working for government, and I'm not hounding for a job in the administration. But there is one job I would be interested in, and that would be to be the executive director of the Government Reform Commission. Because I think, first of all, working with Elon Musk would be a real treat. But also, I'm in agreement with him. I think you could, in a snap, you could get rid of $1 trillion of spending. $1 trillion, one with 12 zeros. And Americans wouldn't even notice the progress we're missing. There is so much redundancy. There's so much waste. There's so much fraud. There's so much obsolescence in government that, there are programs. I mean, you've got whole departments. Lord knows what these people do. They have no impact on the lives of people who live in Chicago or the people who live in Indiana or Wisconsin. Come on. We could do this, and it would be a joy. And every time you eliminate a government program, you save money for taxpayers, and we wouldn't be talking about Kamala's $5 trillion tax increase. Isn't it amazing, by the way, that the woman for running for president at a time when we have a $35 trillion debt and we're running $2 trillion deficits, she can't name one single program, not one, that she would want to get rid of.
Right. Well,
so you think that, in your conversations with Trump, you think, because, we talked about this in his first term, he wasn't really that concerned about cutting spending. You think that it's different this time, and it's one of the things that's different this time, and that he really will even if he outsources it to Paulson and Musk, he really will take under consideration the elimination of agencies, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Elizabeth Warren creation, and so many of these
public radio.
Well, the funding streams and so many of these agencies. You think it's different this time?
Well, I mean, look, I've been disappointed. Even Reagan, who I loved, we didn't cut that much spending. So it's a tough job to cut spending. But yeah, I think Trump is. That's the whole point of this commission, though. Once you identify these things and tell the American people, look, these are worthless programs. Why do we have a wool program? We got plenty of wool in this country. So get rid of these programs. And I think the American people are ready for it. I mean, that's the real question. Are the American people willing to let these programs go away? And I think the answer to that is hell yes. But I can't tell you with certainty because, look, this was a debt that was created by Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
Both of these parties love to play Santa Claus. They love to give things away for free. And so but I'm hopeful. And look, Trump he's a lame dunk when he wins. He only has 2 or 3 years to get stuff done. I think he wants to race out of the gate. I think it's going to be a damn exciting period. And yes, I think we're going to be able to cut, I don't think we can cut $2 trillion, to be honest with you, but I think we could cut hundreds of billions. Did you know that less than 10% of the federal workforce is even working 40 hours a week on the job today? Less than 1 out of 10. Lord knows what these people do. They're probably playing golf right now.
Yeah, but it's true. Well, exactly. But
Okay.
I'm not on the taxpayers' payroll.
No, you're not.
And by the way, these federal employees get 30 when you take into account their benefits.
Right.
They're getting like $200,000 a year. For what?
Nice gig if you can get in. They probably don't go into the office but 1 or 2 times a week, if that. All right. So one of my children.
Yes.
Help me out here, Stephen Moore, because he keeps now, he was all Trump, and now he's like, I don't know, because, Trump's going to give tax breaks to the millionaires and raise taxes on the middle class.
No.
And
No.
I told him, I said, no, they'll say anything in a campaigning. They said that there'll be a federal ban on abortion. He was already in power. That didn't happen.
Right.
So
I mean, on the tax issue, because I'm seeing those same ads. I live in Virginia, and first of all, where are the Democrats getting this money? I mean, they are spending 3 times more than the Republicans. They keep saying that the Republicans are the party of the rich. No, all the Silicon Valley money, all the money from Hollywood, all the foreign money is coming in blitzing against Trump. And I see these ads that you're talking about. Oh, Kamala Harris wants to cut taxes on the middle class. No, she doesn't. She has a $5 trillion tax increase. And then they say, oh, Trump is going to, raise taxes on the middle class. No, our tax plan, which we're going to make permanent, it'll be one of our highest priorities, reduced taxes by $2,500 on average for every single middle class family. And Kamala Harris says she wants to repeal that tax cut. So who's the one who's going to raise taxes on the middle class? Come on, wake up, America. These political ads are a lie.
Stephen Moore, economist, author of the Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again, co-author with Art Laffer.
I'm bringing copies on Saturday.
I want mine. I want mine. Get mine signed by Art Laffer.
Yeah, and you'll be able to find me because I'll be the one in the new cool MAGA hat.
Well, okay, but what are we wearing? Are you going to wear a suit? I mean,
okay, all right. Steve Moore, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
I'm going to wear my Kermit the Frog outfit because it's Halloween.
Okay, well, that's an answer. Thank you.
That's interesting. That will be interesting. All right.
See you guys.
We'll see you Saturday, and he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
My debt problem started probably about 2016. I needed my life to change financially. I called Trinity, and I ended up joining based on high credit card bills and high interest.